Devjani, thank you, and very nice of you to join us here. You have been championing the cause of startups, and we've been seeing how active you are and giving voice to startups. We've been hearing about different segments, conversations with about MSMEs, different sectors, but we didn't hear a very strong voice coming, championing the cause of startups, and you have been leading from the front. Thank you so much. I really want to get into the question that the tech industry has is a key contributor into the GDP of our country. How are you seeing this sector take the double shock of lockdown and slowdown?
Lockdown, maybe one day, Shraddha, you should write a book on the whole lockdown saga for the IT industry. It's an amazing story, right? So, lockdown was actually something that gave us sleepless nights for a week or so because we had to shift, and I don't think any other industry had to do this. We had to shift over 4 million people to work from home, and we had to shift over 2 million assets, PCs, etc., because you know our kind of work. You can't use your personal laptop to do our work. You need the secure desktop or laptop. So we had to shift not just people, we had to shift assets. And keep in mind, we had not been given any time. The lockdown was announced, it was said from tomorrow it starts. So we started working overnight, and I know this is where the India story, I just fall a little bit more in love with the India story, because when this happened, government, cops, state government, central government, industry, everyone just came together. Was it seamless? Was it perfect? Absolutely not. There were tons of hassles getting things understood at the grassroots level, getting permissions at the grassroots level. But irrespective of these hassles, within a week, we had managed it. And it was critical for us to manage it for two reasons. One was, of course, employee safety, and the two was business continuity. We had to ensure business continuity didn't stop. And I am just so proud of this industry because we went through all of that. We shifted people home, we shifted assets home, and business continuity without any disruption to business continuity. And in fact, we've got feedback from, our industry, as you know, serves more than 75% of global Fortune 500 companies. We have got such lovely feedback from so many of these end companies telling us how amazed, surprised, and pleased they were with what Indian IT did, the whole work from home transformation. So the lockdown has, other than those initial hassles of logistic movement, it has not had a big impact on us. The slowdown is what I am tremendously worried about. We are a global industry. Our fortunes are very, very strongly tied to the global economy, and the global economy is slowing down. And at this stage, people ask me, when will recovery be? I said, tell me the timeline for vaccine, and I'll tell you what roughly the timeline for recovery is going to be, because it depends on when a cure is found before things get back to normal all over again. Till then, it's going to be a cautious normal. And a cautious normal may be 90%, maybe 80% of normal, which we do not know today. We have absolutely no idea of guessing what that is, because even our clients do not know. Everybody is trying to figure it out. So, but what we do know is it's not going to be normal. And depending on how long it will take to find the cure, to get things back to normal, I definitely expect some impact. And I can't guess today or give you a number, Shraddha, because we honestly don't know. It depends on how long, it depends on, there are two things happening. On one hand, there are several industries, verticals like travel, tourism, hospitality, which have got significantly impacted and budgets have been slashed. There are other segments like health, education, finance, supply management, that we are seeing significant investment in automation. So we'll have to see what the net, there's a plus and a minus, and we'll have to see what the net is going to be. But all said and done, I think all fingers crossed as to how this year will play out. I'm hoping we'll at least be able to keep some level of growth this year.
NASSCOM came out with the study that it is going to be difficult for 70% of the startups. And today I was speaking to an investor, and he said that someone, one of the portfolio companies which was doing 30 million of revenue every month is today down to zero. From 30 million to zero. That's like a huge, unprecedented, a business shock, if I may say so. And it is tough. I want to understand one about the survey. What was your learnings, takeaways from the survey that you conducted? And second, I want to touch upon this Atmanirbhar package, Atmanirbhar Bharat package, where there's no mention of startups.
Yep.
And what has been your recommendation? What is your suggestion?
As you know, Shraddha, I'm also an angel investor, and I'm an angel investor. Half of my startups at some point have failed, or more than half, right? So I'm a bad financial investor, but I'm passionate about this segment. I'm passionate about this segment. This is one segment where I get to meet people like you. People who have put everything they've had and some more to following their dreams. And nothing inspires you more than that. So I'm just speaking from my heart. It's a segment that I'm very close to, I'm very connected to, and it's a segment that therefore I feel for a lot. Now, it was amazing. I was telling you this earlier when we came out with the report. Now, NASSCOM, to set the context, NASSCOM focuses on entry and mid-level startups. That's the area where we believe startups need the most help. And as NASSCOM, that's the area where we can help the most. So we were talking to a lot of startups and we were getting feedback which was really scary. So we did a structured pulse survey of 250 plus startups to understand what it's like. And it was definitely scary, with more than 90% saying their revenues are going down. There was something like, I think 2/3 of the startups believe that this impact will last around 12 months. And more than half of them do not have the cash in hand to run for more than 3 months, maybe. Right? So it is definitely very scary. The only silver lining was startups being startups are tremendously resilient. So they were desperately trying to see how to pivot, what changes, like move to health, move to ed tech, move to fintech. And this was also accelerating the move to AI, IoT, and other technologies. But that said, that comes with a cost.
Yeah.
The cost of technology is not cheap. So that comes with a cost. So the results, or what we found from the survey, was very scary. And when we published it, there were two types of reaction. One was from the startups and the angel investors. I was flooded with messages and calls saying, thank you for raising our voice. Somewhere in all of this, we have just got completely left out. And the other one, and I think it's a fair concern, some of the top VCs were very concerned because they were like, what is happening? We are not seeing this. And I think they were right, because the startups that VCs work with, they're going through cost rationalization, but they're not seeing this kind of problem. Yeah. And that's why I keep saying it's important to understand the context. These are entry to mid-level startups. In fact, one VC told me, oh, then they're not real startups. And Shraddha, you know me, I try not to lose my temper. But that really had me going. I was like, what are you talking about? Even the startups you invested in at some point were entry level. Yeah. And if you don't care, fine, don't care about them. But don't say they're not real.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are absolutely real. And we have to, and this is why I think the government has to play a very, very important role in saving this nascent stage of startups, because angel and VCs definitely are not in that segment. They don't play in that segment mostly. Angel investors have a wait and watch attitude right now, unfortunately. And I'm really hoping they get over that, because if they care about the segment, they have to realize this is when the segment needs them more than ever.
Yeah.
And government has to step in. So Atmanirbhar package, unfortunately, didn't have much for startups, didn't have anything for startups. Some of the MSME packages were open to startups, but I think they were tremendously complex for most of the, and I'm talking again about entry level, I'm not talking about the big startups. I'm talking about the entry and mid-level startups. They couldn't figure out how to work with that. But I was encouraged today to see the news that DPIIT has put forward a proposal for a seed fund for entry level startups and a credit guarantee, loan guarantee. If that happens, I think that'll be fantastic. I will ask for two more things from government. One, please, for God's sake, just release all refunds that are due to startups.
Oh, I will, I need to, yes,
GST,
yes, yes.
tax. I mean, just pay them now. You know, you can worry about accounting and everything else later. I think the government will earn so many brownie points if they just take that one step. Release, actually three things, not two things. Two, just take some big steps. Say no tax for startups for the next 2 years. Let us come out of this, let us recover fully, then figure about paying taxes, paying GST, paying rentals, paying electricity. Let's truly become a startup nation. And just 2 years, let's give a complete exemption, grow. And if you want to ensure there's no misuse, give it only to startups that actually have IPs or prototypes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you know, so there are ways to think about it. And the third thing, the whole ESOP relaxation that the government gave earlier, again, that was given to IMB approved or, you know, whatever startups, which is less than 6%. We have been pushing this really hard, saying at least make it applicable to DPIIT approved startups. That's a large percentage of startups. If government can even do these three simple things, it will mean so much to this segment.
Devjani, I think there's also a recommendation from you on creating a deep tech investment fund, right?
Yes, yes. We've said around 3,000 crores is required for a deep tech investment fund, and targeted again at entry and mid-level startups, because there's a tons of good work happening at that level.
Yeah.
Tons of good work. They're not getting VC money. Right now, even angel money is drying up, or rather, it's on hold. So it will help. And at a time like this, when you need to create solutions in-house for so many of these, we're talking about Atmanirbhar, we're talking about self-sufficiency. This is when you have to innovate across the spectrum. So a deep tech fund will go a long way to drive that kind of innovation.
Yeah, and you know, on this, again, today I was hearing from some of the investors, they were saying that so many good people are being laid off, unfortunately, that some of them are at home building interesting products, and they are building, the good
Absolutely.
talent is building good solutions right now. And I think they
Yeah,
would.
it's such a brilliant point you're making, Shraddha, because not just people are getting laid off, but over the year, we will see much more happening, and we will see it across sectors. Now, as that happens, you are right. The hiring market is going to be frozen for most of the year, I
Yeah.
guess, other than maybe supply, you know, delivery and all of that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the talent that is getting laid off can be put to such good use for the nation and by the nation, if we can just create an entrepreneurship package that will encourage all these people to come and innovate.
Yes.
So it's a brilliant point you're making.
Women in leadership, women in entrepreneurship, women working in tech companies. You know, in this new reality in work from home, what does that mean? Will it lead to more women working, or because there is an overall contraction in job market, do you think it's going to adversely affect women?
It has the potential to impact women positively. I
Okay.
strongly believe that. Because, see, there are two things. One is companies are not going back on diversity goals, are not going back on equal opportunity goals. Companies still have very aggressive diversity and equal opportunity goals and targets that they have to meet. And so far, they've not been able to meet it because the pipeline has not been there to the extent that it was needed. But now, with women having the ability to remote work, you know, first of all, I think we over romanticize work from home. You know, it's, I'll talk about that a bit later, but I prefer to call it remote work. And I think the future is going to be blended. between remote and office work. But if women have the ability to remote work, I think it'll definitely enable them come back or contribute much more than in the past. But if this blended model will need some fundamental changes to take place. For example, our dear men folk have to realize that work from home for them doesn't mean wake up, have your cup of coffee, sit in front of the computer, do meetings till evening, then sit in front of the TV and blah, blah, blah. Right? I mean, there are a lot of good men, like you know a few, I know a few, who are actually stepping in to help with the household, with the work. But unfortunately, there's still only a few good men.
Yes.
We need majority of the men to realize this, because Shraddha, unless they change that behavior, women are not going, I mean, women are still going to be trapped under all the loadings of doing household work, cleaning up, everything. Maybe even more stressful because the partner's at home 24 hours. I'm not sure how they're going to be able to contribute. So I think there's some fundamental, this is a good time to press that pause button and say, okay, this is how we behave from tomorrow. These are the changes that have to take place. So the new norm, as we call it. But yeah, if we can figure out some of these things, I honestly think this will be a boon for women. But women have to step up and seize this opportunity. You can't sit back and expect it to happen. You have to make it happen.
What are some of the things that challenges or opportunities that you're seeing in this new reality?
So the one good thing we saw in the last 1 month was work from home has not impacted productivity in the tech industry to a very large extent. In fact, productivity in most cases, I'll speak on behalf of just my team, NASSCOM team, productivity is up through the roofs. People are doing a lot more work, which is good and which is bad, because you're working 24 hours and you're not realizing it. And I would never encourage that. Given that work from home is not impacting productivity, I think remote working is definitely going to be an integral part of whatever future work models we come up with. It will not go away. It'll definitely be an integral part. But companies have to invest a lot in ensuring they have the right HR, employment policies, etc., that knows how to handle an offline and online work model, an employee engagement model. You say if you're a company of 100 people, you'll have 50 working in office, you'll have 50 working from home. You'll have to figure out which roles require presence in office, which roles will need to, it can't be person-based. It has to be role-based. You'll have to figure out how do you ensure HR is not biased towards either sector.
Yeah.
You have to ensure a very uniform HR strategy that looks at both segments, understands the nuances, the differences of the segments, but at the same time is extremely fair. And provides equal opportunities to both. Cybersecurity is another area you have to put a lot of focus on, because as you know, in the last 1 month, the number of attacks that we have faced as a country has, in fact, all countries, has gone up significantly.
Yes.
So when you're working from home, since you can't control everything a person does, there's always a chance of, there's always a risk of somebody, the phishing attacks, etc. And it's usually these attacks which leads to the bigger ones. So that is a big area of concern for remote working, and companies will have to invest a lot more in cybersecurity to minimize those risks. And last but not the least is employee mental health, morale. My ideal situation is where we can rotate people and not say, Shraddha, you will work from home forever, and Debjani, you will go to office. It should be, Shraddha, you do it for 3 months, Debjani 3 months, and then we rotate.
So right? Wipro has come up with something like that, or TCS has come up with.
TCS has said that by 2025, they are going to be only 25% in premises, which is majority work from home. That's a very, very bold move. I think most companies will see around, at least in the next few years, will see around a 50-50 model. Most won't go beyond 50. And they'll have to think through the employee engagement and mental health. Engagement is still easy. But somebody sitting alone and working all day, I mean, I have major VC fatigue now. You know, I would love a day when there's no VC. So somebody, I mean, we'll have to think through all those things. It's not as easy as we make it sound.
I want to hear from you because you've managed large businesses, you've worked with small companies, invested in them. Tell me, what are some of the real on ground things that you will ask entrepreneurs to do right now?
Save cash.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's my first advice to even the startups that I mentor. My first advice right now is just save cash. Sit on it. It's okay. Sit on it. But it's extremely important. If you're 6 people and you don't need that office, give up that office. Stop paying the rental. Give up that office. You may love it, but that's okay. Work from your homes or go to a government co-working space, etc., where the rental is either free or minimal, right? Anything that you can, cost rationalization is so important. And no one's going to care how fancy your office is or how fancy your, you know, a car you're driving, or your, some people invest in just setting up fancy business cards, etc. Not right now. This is not the time for it. Right now, I think the first, I mean, this is, I'm again telling you what I tell my startups: just focus on cost rationalization, get ready for the long haul.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is going to take at least a year to 18 months. I hope it won't take more, but it is. This is also a good time to take a hard look at what you are doing,
Yeah.
and figure out if there is that market for it, or either now, or will the market for it come up in the future. Look at opportunities with strong tailwinds. It's going to be extremely important, because a lot of startups I know, and these are all brilliant entrepreneurs, they love what they do. They love the technology they're working on. And I deal mostly with, well, I deal only with tech startups. So they all love their technology. Sometimes they don't realize that it doesn't have a market. It may be a great tech, but it just doesn't have a market because they're not solving any real problem. They're
Yeah.
solving a very futuristic problem. And in today's world, people are not going to invest so much in long-term future, right? So it's a good time to take a hard look at what you are doing. To take, you know, whether you're a startup or you're a CEO, this is the time for the tough questions and the tough answers. That much needed conversation with the mirror that has to happen. And if you feel that you are not on the right track, you don't see any sight to revenue even in this problem, then you have to figure out what changes you have to make.
Laying off has been like is happening, and it is going to happen. And then today entrepreneurs are facing very hard challenge because they are being questioned. There is news that there are news that we are reading every day, and they're just genuine good talent which are being laid off.
Yeah.
And this will only grow. Today what
Yeah.
I heard from the investors is that your business is to be in the business. I want to hear from you, because there is a sense of despair, there is a sense of uncertainty which young people have today. What
Yeah.
you had to advise both the sides, one who's being laid off and to the entrepreneurs, what would you say?
First, to the entrepreneurs, cost rationalization will be a must.
Hmm.
Happens in every crisis. You will have to go through it. Unfortunately, especially in the tech world, people cost are it's one of your biggest cost
Yeah,
elements,
yeah,
right? So it will impact people. It will impact. My only suggestion to an entrepreneur is do it with heart. You know, have the conversations, help however you can, whatever it is, even putting up a really good reference for that person,
yeah,
right? But do it in a humane way, please, because these things come back. You know, they say karma is a dash dash dash. It absolutely comes back. So I think my request is just do it in a humane way, but you will have to do it. There are a lot of you, Shraddha, who are so attached to their teams, and
yeah,
I am mentoring 2 entrepreneurs for whom it's family. You know,
yeah,
they're so attached to their teams. I mean, it's heartbreaking to see what they're having to go through at even the thought of laying someone off, if nothing else happens in the next 3 months and their funds dry up.
yeah,
But they have to stay in the business.
Yes.
So cost rationalize. I mean, I would advise stay in the business, take these steps, forget about what the media is screaming. And I know you guys get a lot of flack as startups laying off to people, etc., etc. That's okay. If the media house is under pressure, even they'll lay off people.
Yeah, they have. They have.
That's
Most of
perfectly
them
okay. Forget about who's saying what. Just focus first on your business and your people. If you have to let go of people, please be humane. Do it in a humane way. And once the business picks up, your people will come back.
Yeah.
Especially if you've kept that connect with him, they realize that you were trying to help them, that you care for them. Loyalty goes a long way in our business. They will come back, right? And to individuals, whether you're working in a startup or in a company, unfortunately, we are going to see a lot more layoffs in the coming days, coming months. It's going to get worse towards the second half of the year. That's the reality. This is the time when you have to, and I know it sounds cliched, but I really mean it, make yourself indispensable. Most companies believe that nobody is indispensable, but in this world where there are certain tech skills which are much sought after and which can help you get that leverage in your company. In fact, one of the things NASCOM has done, and I'm so proud of my team, we worked 24/7 with our partners to make some of these courses available for free during the lockdown period, because we knew this was going to happen and we wanted as many youngsters as possible to go through the coding, AI foundation, big data foundation, robotics, go through these courses and just be ready and have the skills. So something that they can tell their bosses and tell their managers, it's just it's scaling up,
Yeah.
and it helps so much. So and worst case, if you are told that you don't have a job from tomorrow, it's heartbreaking sometimes to hear of the steps young people take, because I guess this is the first time in their lives they're dealing with this kind of a crisis. Life goes on. I know I'm sounding very cliched when I say that, but I really mean it. Life goes on. And yes, there will be a few depressing days, but then something else will come up. This too shall pass. This, at some point, we shall get over this. There will be new opportunities. Use the time to work on your skills so that next time this doesn't happen to you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that just stay positive, talk to people, reach out for mentors, and invest this time in yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as someone said that this is the time to reinvent our own selves, and we have the
Absolutely.
time to reinvent our own selves right now. Yeah, I want to also ask you. You said that you've sent the recommendation to the government, but if you had to suggest that these are some of the steps, and I know you've talked about the deep tech fund and the different things, but if you had to recommend to the government, this is how we can uplift the whole space, what would you say? What are some of the key things that comes to your mind?
First, just get the refunds out, because that itself will give a major burst of liquidity to the startup segment.
Yes.
So, and it's so easy to do. It's very easy to do. So my first one is refunds outstanding. Now, mostly startups don't have a lot of outstanding. SMEs do,
Yeah.
but startups do have refunds stuck with government. To get the refunds out, that's the easiest thing to do. Second, the ESOP, make the change, make it DPIIT approved, because you may not be able to pay salaries 4 months down the line, Shraddha, but if you have the option to give your staff the talent you want to keep, ESOPs, and keep them engaged for a few more months, that's a huge benefit to you.
Absolutely.
And if we can ensure that rather than taxing ESOPs after 4 years, even if we have not exercised, if we can actually tax them at the point when you sell them and you exercise them and you get cash in hand, I
Yeah.
think that will help employees too. Third, waive off. I mean, at least take a year or two and really behave like a startup nation and waive off all sorts of whatever you can waive off for startups, be it GST, be it taxes, be it rental, be it electricity. Just give them a year or give them 2 years to focus on nothing but innovation and
Yeah.
not have anything to worry about. Seed fund for early stage and mid-level startup is critical. They need help. Government has to create that seed fund. Any kind of easy loan, so the loan guarantee scheme, credit guarantee scheme is going to be very useful. And then, of course, the deep tech fund.
I want to understand from you, if you, what are some of your learnings? What are some of your frustrations? What are some of your hopes during this time?
This time, actually, Keshav Murugesh or WNS, he said this first. And I love Charles Dickens, so I'm very ashamed that I didn't think of it myself. But since he said it, it's been stuck in my head that the best way to describe this time is a Dickens quote. These are the worst of times, these are the best of times. And to me, that brings out, and I'm talking about the IT industry, the tech industry, that brings out what this industry is going through. We are faced with one of the biggest challenges of our lives. We've never faced anything like this. The kind of disruption we are facing right now, we have never faced,
Yeah.
right? Across the board. At the same time, this disruption is creating significant new opportunities for this segment. And it is bringing out the best in us, especially in our ability to innovate, to adapt, and also to help each other. It's eye-opening to see, when lockdown was happening, I'll give you one example. There was one state where companies were really struggling to move assets. But they were okay to move people, but they were not able to move assets. WNS went and figured out that you can work with the home guards and they will help you move the assets, and they have the ability. Rather than keep quiet about it, which they could have done because it's a competitive advantage, they immediately, so NASSCOM had this WhatsApp group where we are sharing all best known methods and day-to-day issues. They immediately put it out there. And a lot of other companies went and used that, had that ability to use it and help move assets. So this industry has become so collaborative and I think anytime there's a crisis, it becomes tremendously collaborative. So it gives me a lot of hope. My biggest takeaway is not all, but some countries, some companies will emerge out of this crisis stronger. Definitely not all. We'll see a lot of consolidation happen. The ones that will emerge stronger are the ones that will adapt the fastest and the best. Not the richest, not the biggest, not the strongest. So this is about your ability to adapt. And that's why I have a lot of hope for startups and the IT industry, because we are a resilient lot. We can quickly change our way as needed. So I'm really hoping we do that now.
Yeah. And if I have to say, what's your thought on the Atmanirbhar, India being Atmanirbhar at this time?
I think, Shraddha, uh, going forward, the way the world is going to evolve, uh, we have to be self-sufficient, whether we like it or not, especially when it comes to critical supply chains. Medical supply chain is a critical one. Electronics manufacturing is another critical one. We have to be self-sufficient because, as we have seen, when a crisis like this happens, it's the critical supply chains that gets impacted. And we've seen the crippling effect it has on the economy.
Yes.
So I think we have to choose. We should not close our borders, definitely. And I hope Atmanirbhar does not mean closing of borders. And I think PM has been pretty clear on that. But building self-sufficiency with the right level of collaboration is the mantra going forward. We should absolutely collaborate. We should absolutely collaborate, but not at the cost of self-sufficiency is how I believe. For the critical elements, we have to be self-sufficient first.
Yes. And Devjani, I want to ask you, what other than working and doing all these calls and drafting all these policies and recommendations, what else have you done during the lockdown?
Oh my God, Shraddha, by the time this lockdown ends, I definitely am going to emerge a domestic goddess. I have, I have mastered the art of vacuum cleaning. I have mastered the art of dishwashing. And cooking, I'm still struggling with, though I do make one or two good things, but I'm still majorly struggling with it. But it's so much fun. I mean, we don't have live-in help and all of that, so it's just mom and me. So it's great fun. These are things I have never done in my life other than when I was living outside India. I was perfectly capable then. India spoils you so much. You have all this support system, fabulous support system, that you don't have to raise your fingers to do anything. And I honestly think this lockdown has been good for us in that, I mean, those of us who have the luxury of living in a home and not have the need to step out.
Yeah.
This has been good. I mean, it sort of helped you figure out, that you're capable of doing much more. And the
Yeah.
other thing, that it also did was, I think for me, this lockdown was about gratitude. There, you realize how much of a difference people make to your lives. You realize how lucky you are compared to the people who have to walk thousands and thousands and thousands of miles to get back home.
Yeah.
So for me, the biggest takeaway of the lockdown was, honestly, all jokes aside, was about gratitude. The way my team, Shraddha, has worked 24/7 through the crisis. You said, I am writing the policy. I am not. I am just the ringmaster, if you can call it that, right? But the people who are working day and night to create policies, to create, to stay engaged with members, the number of mails I get from members just saying thank you to so and so for saving my business.
Wow.
They're goosebump mails. I mean, I have saved each and every one of them, and I will never delete those files. Uh, but the way people work, the way people help each other, the Sikh community that has gone out of its way to do so much for migrant laborers, etc. Amazing. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway for me was how much gratitude we need to have in our lives.